In Photoshop, there are various ways to save or export your project. So if we want to save a document to work on later, we can go to File, Save, and we'll be prompted to save our image. The default format would be a PSD, which is a Photoshop document. So I'm just going to save that onto my documents, and I'm going to call it Ice Cream Shop Comp, because it's a composited image. You can choose if it's Photoshop, and you can come back and work on that later, or you can sort of compress the image down to a single image. If I save it as a JPEG, then I won't be able to work on the separate layers. The layers will be compressed, it'll be a single image, which I can't then adjust the layers later. A PNG will do the same, but a PNG is usually higher quality and a slightly smaller file size. So I strongly recommend saving in PNG if you've finished with your project. So for now, I'm just going to save it as a PSD. And I'll maximize compatibility, and I can now come back and work on that later. Now, if you did want to export it and save it as a PNG to put onto a website or to use in another program, you can go to File, Save as PNG. But a much better way of doing this is to export the document. If I go to Export and then choose Export As, that'll bring up the following export menu. Once it finishes processing, it'll give me a preview of what my image looks like. Now, the reason why this is the preferred method for exporting is it gives you a few additional options. So I can choose to preserve transparency. So if we had, for example, a title we were working on which had a transparent background, it would retain the transparency, which is then used for things like video editing. It would have a transparent background or import into other Photoshop documents and so forth. You can also choose the image size. So if I know the maximum width for this can only be 1000 pixels, it'll automatically adjust the height to suit. So if you're doing something for a website, you might have a strict set of requirements as to how large your document can be. I won't go into the resample rate because it's quite complicated to describe. The canvas size, if you make the canvas size larger than the image, let's make it 3000, what will happen is it will create additional transparency around your canvas. Like so. Let me just reset that. There we go, as it's cropped that additional excess off. The metadata, you can include copyright and contact information, which would be handy if somebody wants to contact you in regards to the image, as that data is embedded in the image itself. And you can choose whether to convert to sRGB and whether or not to embed the color profile, which again are more advanced options, mainly used if you're using this image or editing the image in another application. Once you're happy with your changes, you can export all. You can choose what to call it, and the file extension will be a PNG unless you've changed it to a JPEG. One thing that's worth mentioning, if you do choose to use a JPEG, you don't have the option to preserve transparency because JPEGs don't retain transparency information, but PNGs do. So I'm going to save this as a PNG. I'm going to click Export All. I'm going to save it into Pictures. Click Export, and that's now done.